Byron Lamb asking here, Cam, do you think we should give up on the 22 recruiting class since the 23 class is loaded, or should we hold out hope that we will land major targets this year?
You only give up. You never give up on a class, even if you change coaches. No. And Dan Mullen, Florida's coach, was asked about this week. And he said, well, he was asked about this year's recruiting class. And he said, well, we'll recruit when it's time to recruit. But right now we're going to play football. The previous day, Kirby Smart had been asked about, recruiting throughout the year. And Kirby Smart's talking about, oh, yeah, no, we got to, this time, that time, we got visits, we got calls, we got everything. We're always looking and evaluating. And we're, the University of Georgia, and it's starkly different. And I quote tweeted that and said, hey, Dan Mullen missed the point here because it's always recruiting time. The seminal phrase, ABC, always be recruiting, and then always be closing. But there's not a time of the year that's not recruiting time. And if you're a head coach and you ever utter something like that, like, oh, maybe at another time or blah, blah, blah. Now, in context, you can say, cool, on signing day, your big target, Manny Diaz. Your big target chose Alabama. Yeah, that sucks. But, we're going to get back in the lab. There's other guys next year with size and strength and athleticism, and we're going to just continue to do our thing. That's one thing. But to say, oh, yeah, we're going to segregate when we're recruiting to a different time of the year than now, there is no better time to recruit than right now. Like, what are you doing? And you saw some of this in 2018's recruiting class for Miami, how this did not play out well because Mark Richt and company said, look, we're going to push all of our chips to the center of the table to try to make the college football playoff in that 2017 season that started 10-0, that ended that undefeated season where Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. But there were players who wanted to visit. There were recruits there were all kinds of recruiting moves that could have been made through the year. And he said, we're going to go all in on this college football playoff thing. And then hopefully at the end, between maybe the ACC championship game and the bowl game or the playoff, that's where we're going to really turn it up. But we're going to pause it now and hope that pays off. And it imploded, right? So you're not going to ever do well by pushing off recruiting in general. Now, if you want to say, okay, cool, I'm going to bring Mark to the shoe for Michigan O State game for his official visit. Oh, end of the year rivalry game. Yeah. Now you can dictate when certain things are going to happen, but I'm not going to go and say, cool, you're from Massillon, Washington High School. You're the star quarterback. I'm not going to recruit you until that week or later. What sense does that make? Everybody else in America is going to be on this kid, regardless of where they're from. So no, I'm not of the idea that we need to punt on this season or on this recruiting class. Now, it's going to be a small class, and then hopefully we're going to bank some big players and some big names from this transfer portal because Manny Diaz has already put it out there that that's going to happen, and that's going to be the paradigm. So where I thought it was going to be 17-19 and the balance is going to be transfers, it might be fewer than that coming from the prep ranks and higher numbers or invert that. So maybe 13-15. And then the remainder of the available 32, which I believe is 30 because count a couple guys forward. But the remainder of the numbers, those are going to be from the transfer portal, doing something like what Mel Tucker did at Michigan State when he brought in 21 players from the transfer portal last year. So I think we might go that route. But, yeah, giving up on a recruiting class, absolutely not. Never in a million years. No. So because, again, one of the recruiting rules is you need to stack elite classes on top of each other. That's how you get this championship caliber roster. So I need last year's class, and you got many guys from that class playing now and playing well. Even though he didn't have great kicker returns last week, Brashard Smith playing well when he gets on the field. Leonard Taylor continues to be the highest graded defensive tackle on Miami's roster every single game that he plays, including last week. Cam Kinchins and James Williams, both starting safeties now. One of them was just named the ACC Defensive Back of the Week. Jacoby George on offense, Romello Brinson on offense, Elijah Arroyo scoring touchdowns finally on offense. Look, you got guys playing. You got guys playing all over the place, right, from this last recruiting class. So now we want to put more guys on top of them, and then in 23, more guys on top of them. But saying, oh, we can just be okay and average, That's going to be an Al Golden kind of class. That's going to be a not 2008 Randy Shannon kind of class. You want those classes again? Because I sure don't.
Yeah, there's too much at stake. It's just a full recruiting class just to give up on it.
Who knows? My God. Wow. I mean, that's like just depending. Look, you're talking about bringing in 30-something guys from a roster that's in the 70s and going to lose. So, I mean, you're trying to get back to 80. You're talking about 40% of your roster almost being new coming in this year. Damn near, because, you don't have the COVID year anymore. But, 40% of your roster is going to be new from whoever comes on the campus this year, whether they're a prep player or a transfer player. You're talking about punting that? Just throwing in the towel? What? No. I'm sorry, but no.
And listen to Cam dropping Massillon, Washington High School.
I know my recruiting.
All right. And also, just to let everybody know, if you want to hear a conversation, David Waters from Gators Breakdown, we had him on the other day. He was the media person who asked Dan Mullen the question about recruiting, and we had David on the other day to discuss. And even if you look at Dan Mullen's background, it defies logic, because number one, he's at a premier SEC school. You have to recruit to win, number one. Number two, he's been in the SEC forever. So even Mississippi State not being an elite school, still competitive, still a good program, a top 30, 35 program. He's been in the league, in the most competitive league in the country for 15 years. And then even before that, he was at Florida under Urban Meyer, who's obsessed with recruiting.
I mean, make it make sense. Not only that, but you're going against those monsters from Athens every year. You know what I mean? Like Georgia, and they got more talent than you can shake a stick at, and they're just getting more and more and more and more. And then you're talking about, we're going to win. And you can just see it clearly between their two answers. One guy's like, we'll focus on this a little bit and we'll get some of those guys. And there's one guy who's like, we're always recruiting because we're trying to be the best ever, because we need to be the best ever, because if we're not, then Alabama or Ohio State or somebody else is going to be the best ever. And we can't have that because we're the University of Georgia. So we need to continue to push the envelope and recruit the best players. And even if we had the best players already on the roster, we're going to recruit more of them and then all of a sudden after 3-4 years have that monster of a defense that they have. Come on, guys.
And we've all held jobs where we had certain components of that job that we didn't like or weren't necessarily good at. So you familiarize yourself with that and you force yourself to be somewhat interested in that. Plus, you can always surround yourself, if you're a head coach, hey, hire the best recruiters you can find to be your assistant coaches. All right. Falcon Rex, thank you so much. We always appreciate it. You know that. Tale of two Miami teams, the current team versus the team that started the season. Which do you choose? I'll take option 2. Okay.
Yeah, the one that's winning games with the quarterback who has been the rookie of the week in the ACC consecutive weeks, completing 75% of his passes for almost 800 yards with 7 touchdowns and 1 interception in those 2 weeks. Finally playing your all-American 5-star recruits, finally playing with some fire, purpose, and passion, and coming up with victories. Yeah, give me that team.
So Ryan says here, Manny said at one point you cannot build your team through, in terms of long-term, through the portal, but now they want to build the team that way. Its opponent, his ability to develop is lacking. Would you agree?
Yes, it's apparent.
It's apparent.
No, I do agree. He did say that, and it's funny how the goalposts move. It's funny how the points of conversation change over time. Because yes, he did say that you cannot build a team long term through the portal. That is correct, because you're going to only have them for a couple of years. You're going to have a mercenary squad. That might be a good mercenary squad, but these 1 or 2 year mercenaries are going to leave. So who's going to be there? The players that you develop, but you're not developing players. So, you have guys coming in and they're at the top of the rotation. Again, De'Aaron King at quarterback. Yes, I mean, I know he got injured in the bowl game and then this year again, but look, he steps in, boom, Charleston Rambo. You know what I mean? Jared Williams, quietly having a really good season at right tackle. But he's a transfer. You get, I mean, these guys in DeAndre Johnson playing at defensive end. Like you haven't really had any of the, oh, Bubba Bolden, excuse me, at safety till he got injured. Look, man, you're gonna get some guys through the portal, and there have been other guys over the course of time, but they're gonna leave. They're gonna leave, and they're gonna leave quicker than the other guys because they've had or exhausted some of their eligibility elsewhere. The foundation of your program has to be your ability to develop players, and it's clear that there's a gap in that in the Manny Diaz regime. It just is verifiably true. Now, yes, there are outliers and exceptions to that rule, but overall, there's been a real struggle to develop talent. And again, I've been following recruiting for, a long, long time, like ever since I was a child, but like blogging about it for more than a decade, man. Look, you can run down the list of players who have not lived up to their billing in Miami, but you cannot convince me that they were not talented, they did not perform on the high school level, and were not wanted by many, many, many Power 5 teams. You can talk about, okay, D. Wiggins, he was the other receiver at Southridge, but Mark Pope, everybody wanted Mark Pope. Everybody. Florida State, Alabama took visit there, Louisville. I mean, I know that they're not super duper premium, but this is in the same time as Lamar Jackson. So yeah, that mattered. You know what I mean? Like, but there were all kinds of teams that wanted Mark Pope. Did he end up living up to the billing? No. Did he not rate as a recruit? Miss me with that. I saw the man play in high school. I know some people are like, well, I watched the film and he had a really terrible quarterback, but still, who ended up playing defensive back in college, by the way. So yeah, the quarterback situation in South Florida it's not necessarily the greatest. The Lamar Jacksons and Geno Smiths of the world are few and far between. Okay. But yeah, no, there are players on this roster that teams all over the country wanted. So that means if they're not performing to some kind of level, it's on the team where they are right now. Unfortunately, it's Miami Hurricanes that's not holding up their part of the bargain in terms of development.
Chugmo Beer. There he is. Good to see you. Thanks for the super chat. The Manny Diaz defense is in the history books for giving up the most rushing yards, 530 against UNC last year, and now giving up the most passing yards in the history of the program. Apparently, I'm taking it from here. In school history against Pitt, 519. Fire Diaz now. Well,
hold on. Box score.
.530 rushing. I remember 778 was the
554. Total. No, 554. It was 778 and 554. I knew it was more than that. Okay, that's what I looked up. Yeah, because it was 558 and then took a knee. But yeah, it was 554 total. But no, Chugmo Beer is correct. The worst rushing defense performance in Miami Hurricanes history was under Manny Diaz's watch, although he will claim that was a Blake Baker coordinated defense, even though Blake Baker coordinated the same defense that Manny Diaz wanted to run, and Manny Diaz infamously told everybody that he was more in charge of the defense as the season went on because of the deficient performance. So I'm not sure how much you can distance yourself from that one, buddy, but okay. But then again, also this past week, gave up the most passing yards in program history with 519 to Kenny Pickett. So you have the worst rushing defense performance and worst passing defense performance in program history under Manny Diaz. If you isolate that, then yes, he needs to be fired. I think that there are other reasons that you could add to that as well. But nothing that Chugmo Beer said is wrong on this one. These are definitely points. These are definitely demerits to the Manny Diaz program, not anything that would be an accolade.
The only disclaimer I'll add to that is I think you could go through football history, whether that be at the NFL or collegiate level, and if you look at the most prolific rushing games in history, those are almost always winning efforts by the team that rushed for that yardage versus the defense. Yeah. Because just of the nature of the game, that if you can dominate on the ground, you've got no reason to throw the ball. You're dominating the game. And unless some crazy things are going on, if you're rushing for 530 yards, you are not losing that game in any way, shape, or form. As opposed to passing for 500 yards, depends on the context of the game. We see plenty of huge passing numbers for losing teams, which by nature of the pass being required and needed, if you're losing the game and then acquiring and amassing yardage in that capacity, so that the passing statistic has to be taken into context. And I guarantee that if we looked at the top 10 passing yardage games in the history of the NFL or in college football, the winning percentage would be much lower than it is for teams that rushed for the most yardage in the history of those two levels of football.
Agreed.